What is a very interesting or odd psychological phenomena or fact? I had a customer who knew that her entire family had been replaced by actors. Those had gone through extensive surgery and training to mimic their body language, way of speaking, and such, while all memories of the relative they replaced had been transferred to them with a chip in the arm. She told me she was a nurse and had witnessed this in other cases. It's really crazy. This actor lives in the house of your relative, looks like him, speaks like him, knows everything that happened 20 years ago, but this isn't your relative. She was 100% convinced of this, not the smallest doubt. Her main concern was what happened to her real family. Only years later I learned this is called Capgras delusion. I hope she got help and that she could reunite with her family. Placebo effect is the one that is the strangest to me. It's so wild, like fake thing that causes a real effect. What's even more wild is the placebo effect works on animals, and it works on humans when you tell them they are getting a placebo and show them it's a placebo. It's so weird. Confronting someone with information that is at odds with what their brain is used to stimulates the amygdala in the same way a physical attack does. So telling some old person that what they think the world is like is essentially wrong can be compared to a slap in the face. This can be small things as well. I tried to explain to my father once that people are making money off of YouTubers, content creators, and that idea was so outlandish to him that he got angry and loud. My girlfriend at the time was really confused and scared afterwards. We ran into this while taking care of my grandmother. Once dementia had set in, she kept asking where various family members were. Originally my mother would remind her that person had been dead X years. My grandmother would get angry she wasn't told prior and would grieve all over again. I was in high school, and after watching it enough times I would say they were over on whatever street the cemetery they were buried in was on. She'd handle it better, she knew where they were, not why they were there, was able to get other family members to follow suit. Daily visits became less stressful for everyone involved. When asking for something big, lead up to it by asking for something inconsequential at first, so the person is likely to say yes, followed by slightly larger requests. Once a person has said yes, they feel obligated to keep saying yes. Salespeople do this a lot. If you want something small, start by asking for something ridiculous, so by comparison, the small thing seems trivial. Salespeople do this a lot too. Also, people are more inclined to let you do something if you give a reason. The interesting part is that it doesn't really matter what the reason is. For instance, asking to cut in front of someone at the checkout. If you ask, "Do you mind if I cut in front of you? I just need to buy these things," will be more effective than just saying, "Do you mind if I cut in front of you?" Even though the reason is irrelevant, everyone is in line because they need to buy things. Brains are weird. For more social psychology facts, subscribe below. Just kidding. Buy a textbook. I'm not a bot. Tachipsachia. Essentially, under situations of extreme stress, your mind starts processing information at such a high rate of speed that time seems to slow down in your perception. Victims of car crashes experience it. I experienced it during my first firefight in Afghanistan. It was like the entire world was slow motion. Famously, you saw Tom Hanks' character Captain Miller in Saving Private Ryan experience it during the Normandy landing sequence. I've experienced this when I was in high school. I was driving with some friends of mine during the winter months, and our car slid into a tree. Right before we hit the tree, I distinctly remember time seeming to slow down as we plowed through the tree. It was a small tree. The whole thing took about 3 seconds, but it felt like 30 seconds to me. I remember the moment right before we hit the tree, and the moment right after when I was running away. The friend wasn't supposed to be driving people, yet because we were only 16, I didn't realize this was an actual thing. I have SDAM, stands for severely deficient autobiographical memory. I don't know of anyone else who has this condition, and there's only about 2 articles I could find about it on Google. It's non-serious and was not caused by childhood trauma that I'm aware of. I had a safe and fairly loving upbringing. It basically means I lack the ability to revisit any long-term memories. I know that certain things have happened, but I can't go back and watch it in my mind because I didn't store the experience. There are a handful of exceptions, which are mostly recent memories. I had my 21st birthday party 2 years ago, and I don't remember anything that happened during it, but I can see the photos. Seeing photos and videos of myself is super weird, because it's like watching someone else, because I don't remember doing the thing. This also means I have no perception of my past self, and I don't feel connected to the person I was even a year ago. I know my personality is pretty much the same, but I also know I have changed an awful lot in the last few years, and I think some people think I'm trying to be a different person or something. I'm not. I'm just working solely with my present self and growing how I see fit. It's kind of upsetting that I can't relive most of the good things that have happened to me, but it also gives me a sense of peace because I can't relive the bad things either. That said, I have a very strong imagination, and I've fabricated and remade past events in my head to fill in the gaps, even though I don't use those imaginary scenarios for anything. It's very odd. It's frustrating trying to explain this to people, so I no longer try to unless I'm comfortable with and trust them. Most people brush it off and say, well, they're in there somewhere, you just need to find them. No, they are not in there. Nothing is in there, and memory triggers usually do nothing for me. I think a part of it may be because I have ADHD, and for me, it has caused an overactive mind, which takes precedence over what's happening in my physical environment. I think I've spent so much of my life in my head that I just haven't recorded any memories of my experiences. Anyway, that's my psychological anomaly. Fact 1. It's common for victims of violent crimes to forget key details, even if they saw everything, because their brain is focusing more on how to survive than how to identify the perp. It's rare for prosecutors to have a victim who remembers everything about the perp or the place, which makes the trial difficult, because we often assume that victims will remember all the key details. In fact, they are more likely to remember minor details like smells and sounds. Fact 2. If you keep the first and last letter in every word in the same spot, but rearrange the middle letters, your brain can automatically figure out the words. IDK what it is, but when going to bed I get truly random slideshows in my brain before I go to sleep. Like, last night from what I remember, I saw closed eyes, a train running through a desert, a giant panda, about Godzilla sized, eating two small bamboo sticks, the sun erupting a yellow mass with teeth, my dog, but she was blue, a helicopter, parked on the ground, with rotor blades so long they touch the ground, aliens infiltrating Secret Service, and many more weird, random things. It's literally as if my brain's ability to filter thoughts is removed as I go to bed, and all the random shit I don't register thinking about during the day gets through all in the span of like 3 minutes before I fall asleep. I'm not lucid dreaming. I'm fully conscious, awake, and can move and talk to describe the images and respond to questions. IDK. Weird to me, even though I've always had it happen to me. Thought blocking. A person with psychosis or schizophrenia may be talking about a subject and suddenly go silent, sometimes for a few seconds, sometimes longer. When they come back they will be on a completely different train of thought. What they've done is blocked an intrusive thought. It may have been a hallucination or a disturbing internal dialogue, but what happens is the intrusive thought is blocked and discarded, and along with it the previous line of thought. This is why you may sometimes see a mentally ill person talk almost rationally about, say, sushi. Then they go silent and the next moment they are talking about car batteries. They experienced an intrusive thought, blocked it, then tossed out the previous normal thought with it. It's likely that thought blocking is actually a normal response to an intrusive outside thought or dialogue entering your mind, which makes it unlikely that human beings would ever communicate well telepathically. We would tend to block the implanted communication, then blank on our previous train of thought, and have to move on to a new one. I'm not a psychologist. This is something I read about researching a book I'm working on. I'm not sure if this belongs here, but I find it fascinating. Humans truly are absolute creatures of habit and familiarity. Many years ago, before the advent of mobile phones being common, most households had landline phones, and the ringtones of the landline telephones were very similar to each other. Then with the advent of mobile phones in general and smartphones in particular, a whole world of ringtones opened up. We could have literally any noise at all for a ringtone. From Crazy Frog, remember him, to songs to fart noises to our own child telling us mummy answer the phone. I had my son repeating that over with an increasing sense of urgency. Sometime in the last few years though, it seems that most of us have one particular sound. And what sound is it? Old-fashioned phone, because in our brains, that is what a phone is meant to sound like. This may well be a regional thing. I live in Australia, but whenever I'm out, the ringtone I hear most often that sends nearly everyone in the vicinity grabbing for their phones is that exact tone, including me.